Hi folks, Logan here, recording part 2 of my Germ Theory video series, two-part series, in my makeshift camper studio. We're getting a rare thunderstorm on the horizon here out in the desert, so I didn't want to have the wind noise on the video. And I recorded part 1 a week ago and mentioned in it that I wanted to go into some detail about why I think germ theory is wrong, why I've concluded that after quite literally several thousand hours of intense research over many years of ill health. And I thought maybe the best way to approach this would be to use my own personal experience with Lyme disease. A couple of weeks ago I was watching an interview that Sam Bailey, one of my sheroes in the health field, was doing with an author by the name of Dan Roytas. And I mentioned this book last week, Can You Catch a Cold, which I highly recommend. Incredibly well cited with tons of research studies, summaries, and links. And it kind of lit a fuse in me, that interview, and I left a comment in her comment section and wound up having a really positive and in-depth exchange with another Lyme patient, which I think might be a good way to kind of access my conclusions at this point on germ theory. My backdrop today is a really cool banner that my dear friends Laura and Drew surprised me with when I made it to the Pacific Ocean south of San Francisco on October the 3rd of 2015 on my Trek for Truth, hiking and biking all the way across the country solo. And last week when I recorded part 1, that was the 9th anniversary of the day I started the Trek for Truth, April 18th, 2015. So I love this banner. It means a lot to me, and hopefully it makes a pretty decent studio backdrop. So bear with me. I'm going to read from some highlights of the comment exchange that this person and I had, and I'm going to keep her anonymous, but it's very representative of, I think, the mental struggle that someone who's had a long-term experience with what they think is a germ-caused disease has with trying to release some of that programming and examine the possibility that germ theory is fundamentally wrong. And some of the things she expresses are exactly where I was 9 years ago. And the last 4 years in particular has helped me launch forward quite a bit. So anyway, here's my initial comment after watching Dan's video. Another brilliant interview. I saw Dan's talk with Tom Cowan last week, but he goes much deeper in this discussion. I'll be sharing this with friends who now lead my hometown Lyme disease support group. Letting go of the fallacy that microbes cause so-called disease is a critical step in finding real ways to heal and maintain health. Sounds like Dan's book is perfect for that goal. I'll be buying it as my next read now that I've finished the Bailey's new book, The Final Pandemic. So what do you say causes Lyme disease? Do you think Plum Island is untrue? I'm seriously asking, not being sarcastic at all. Are you saying there are no bioweapons that cause serious symptoms? My response: I certainly don't deny the existence of truly sick people. I was one of those who had known tick bites prior to my illness. I can't say for sure, but I feel it likely that a combination of multiple accumulated toxins, such as dental mercury, aluminum, toxic mold, PCBs, dioxins, etc., along with chronic poor nutrition and a physical insult, in my case a serious bike crash that caused a concussion and an extensive surgery about 18 months prior to my tick bites, those were the precursors to my ill health. It's possible the tick bite may act as a catalyst, but not from any bacteria. They do inject a toxin and an anticoagulant to aid their feeding, and that may be a trigger. I read the book Lab 257 and believed in the concept of biowarfare for years. But when you understand the fallacy of germ theory, that type of germ warfare is not possible. Certainly mass poisoning is possible via gas and many other forms of toxins, but microorganisms themselves have never been proven to be the cause of ill health. When you read Willy Bergdorfer's actual study that named a bacterium as the cause of Lyme, the methods section is just as pathetic as all the viral causation studies Sam and Mark Bailey have covered. Her response: thanks for presenting your views so respectfully and sharing your experience. I don't necessarily believe the narrative and am not a germ theorist, but to believe there are no parasitic microorganisms that cause symptoms doesn't work for me either. The child I reference had a severe reaction to the tick bite at the site and symptoms for years after. The suffering of that child was not psychosomatic, and the symptoms were debilitating at times. The symptoms were caused by a tick bite. I don't know what was injected. Some people get tick bites and don't react at all. Others get bites, react significantly, and have symptoms for long periods afterwards. I've had bites that are problematic for months, go away, and then return. Itchy and painful and swelled. Hard to believe there's nothing to the bites. In your case, I hope you've healed and have no further problems. God bless. My response: I'm not denying the ill health and the suffering is very, very real. I can personally testify to that. I've been near death several times over the past 12 plus years. I was a very active Lyme disease advocate for many years, and you can find my testimony on my YouTube channel called Journey Through Lyme and my later channel called Trek for Truth. I've met and interacted with hundreds of Lyme patients. The suffering I've witnessed with adults and children is very real and very heartbreaking. But after countless hours of additional research, it seems very clear that what we call Lyme disease is not caused by a bacterium. There are without question parasites among the life forms on this planet. Most are among nature's recycling system. What we call bacteria perform a detox and recycling function in the presence of toxins and decaying tissue. Most of what I thought I knew about Lyme disease I now believe is wrong. That doesn't mean I'm denying ill health, nor the associated suffering. I just don't find the evidence that it fits within the germ theory paradigm of infection and disease. The very terms we've all been taught to use lock us into the trap of germ theory thinking. It is very challenging to move beyond those mental walls. Now I see symptoms as the body's attempt to heal. When I took massive doses of antibiotics over 7 months back in 2011 and 2012, all I really did was shut down my body's healing response. Yes, my symptomatic suffering was temporarily eased, but eventually the body would need to attempt to heal again. But without question, the GI damage caused by the antibiotics has led to other physical issues that still challenge me. Remember, all antibiotics are toxins by definition. They are poisons intended to kill biological life forms. I want nothing more than to find the real answers to the questions you posed in your posts. I feel certain that those answers are not to be found in germ theory. We have so much to unlearn and then to discover. Let me scroll down here, editing some of this out for brevity. It was a really good exchange. This is still me. I believe biowarfare exists only in two forms: poisoning and the only true contagion that should concern us, the contagion of fear. I saw your last reply when I was watching Tom Cowan's weekly live stream, and he was actually reviewing key aspects of Dan's book. As I was pondering my reply to you, I had the thought that fear was the only true contagion. The frequency of fear in all its forms, such as anger, resentment, shame, indignation, produces a biochemical response within all of us that in a chronic form is certainly not conducive to good health. My trusted scientific sources include the Baileys, Tom Cowan, Andy Kaufman, Adam and Josh Bigelsen, Christine Massey, Mike Stone, Stefan Lanka, Bear Lando, and now Dan Roytas, among many others. They only present information and they never intentionally try to trigger my emotions or instill fear. I'm immediately suspicious of any presenter who is obviously trying to elicit an emotional response from their intended audience. Critical thought cannot coexist with negative reactive emotions. We don't need to have a replacement theory in order to reject one that has never been proven correct. But in order to turn our full attention to researching the actual causes of ill health, and there are always many causes, we must set aside those theories that are obviously wrong. Our bodies have an innate wisdom in determining what is me and what is not me, and integrate natural life-affirming substances like real food, clean structured water, and clean air. And they do their best to reject those substances that are alien. All the ingredients in every vaccine, be it graphene oxide, fetal bovine serum, formaldehyde, aluminum, mercury, and on, are alien substances, and our bodies must attempt to remove them. The same is true of the ingredients in antibiotics. We've all been taught to call symptoms as merely indications of the body's attempt. What we've all been taught to call symptoms, are merely indications that the body is attempting to remove poisons. One of the greatest gifts you give yourself when you recognize that germ theory is completely wrong is the peace of mind that comes when you shed your fear of microorganisms. All my best wishes to you and yours. That's the conclusion of the excerpt of that exchange, although right at the very end, this poster, which I'm really grateful for her interaction with me and her kindness and her open-mindedness, she posted a video I mentioned last week in part 1 by Dr. Steph Young, and it's called Germ Theory and Lyme Disease. I recommended people watch it back then. I recommend it even more now in light of this conversation that I just shared with you. In the show notes, I'm going to list a number of these resources, some of the authors of which I named in this video, and not the least of which is Dan Roytas and this book. This book is just incredibly detailed and well-cited, and points out the fact that over more than 100 years, no study has verified contagion and infectious disease in a laboratory setting. I know that sounds like an outrageous statement for those of us that were born into this germ theory paradigm, but when you research it, you'll find out it's true. It's absolutely true, and the same thing is true for virology. So with that, I'm going to cut this off, and I encourage you to check those resources out. I don't expect you to believe me. My conclusions came after literally several thousand hours of research over the last 12 years, but I hope you'll be inspired to maybe dig in a little on your own. Maybe I can save you some time in seeking out some of these resources, and you'll find those in the show notes and in pinned comments. So with that, this is Unitic signing off for the day. Viet Animo, strength and courage, heart and soul, and thanks for listening.